and thank you for joining me today on Loyal World Info. Another day of the global spinning, another day of global news to digest. I offer a sane, rational voice for an insane, rational time. I will be your host, but first, let me share a little bit about me. I look forward to waking up to the international news like a child opening a Christmas present. I never know how I will act or activities I will do until after I unwrap my present. In the news case, what will I learn? What will it cause me to think about? What will I reflect back on? And what will I share with others? Stay with me and let's open presents together. Now, let's get into today's topics. The topics in this section will be international, China versus Philippines in naval waters, mobile Convoy 19 medical stations, Convoy 19 patients in their 30s and 40s have strokes, lockdown brings woman bliss at home, abortions on hold, and Americans too scared to work. Now, let's get into it. Okay. In our first article of the day, Chinese naval vessels locked its radar on the Philippines ship. So, let's get into this. A Chinese warship locked its radar guns on a Philippines naval vessel in an act of tantamount to a signaling an inbound missile, Manila has revealed in a protest logging amid accusations Beijing has capitalizing on the coronavirus pandemic to consolidate its claims over the South China Sea. The act of aggression is just one in a series by China in the disputed waters in recent weeks, just as Southeast Asian nations, many of them rival claimants to territory within the resource-rich waters, struggling with the pandemic. Last weekend, Beijing announced the creation of 2 new districts to administer the dispatch parcel of the sparkly islands in the South China Sea, parts of which are claimed by Malaysia, the Philippines, Vietnam, and Taiwan. That sparked outrage and the second protest in as many weeks from Vietnam, which earlier condemned the sinking of the fishing boat by a Chinese Coast Guard vessel near the parcels. Foreign Ministers Marshi Payan expressed concern on Thursday over a number of recent incidents and actions including reporting efforts to disrupt other countries' resources development activities, and called for all parties to avoid destabilizing activities that distracted the international efforts to respond to the pandemic. Malaysia had issued its own unusually direct statement asserting the rights over its own waters amid the standoff between Chinese survey ship Hongzhong 8 and a Malaysian survey vessel conducted exploratory drilling for the state oil company Petronas. But Malaysia's Foreign Minister Hakan Hussein also warned of a risk of miscalculations leading to a conflict after the U.S. warship, accompanied by the Australian frigate HMAS Parakaka, raised the temperature in the region this week. Okay, so I'm going to stop here and I'm going to give you a little background. First, last week, China did sink a Vietnam ship in a parcel. The very next day, the Philippines showed camaraderie with Vietnam's claims. Then China moved into Philippines waters. Then a few days later, they moved into Malaysia waters, and that's where that Horizon 8 ship came from. And then they also went into Taiwan's waters. So they're kind of going all over. Personally, I think China did the virus kind of as a distraction so it could take care of internal and external affairs for its own country. But what I did not see happening is that the Australians were going to get involved, as they have. And yes, 2 American ships did go into the waters. Unfortunately, they are not the aircraft carriers, as those were caught the convoy, and one is in Guam and one is in Japan. So that's an update to what's going on. The USS American Affiliation assault ship and guided missile cruiser USS Bunker Hillside, close to where both the Hazine Dizin 8 and contracted Malaysian survey vessel were operating on Tuesday, accompanied by HMAS Parliament and a third U.S. vessel, the destroyer USS Barry, as a joint exercise. All right, so during this passage, the exercises of the ships honed apparently between the Australian and U.S. navals, including replenishment at sea, abalone operations, maritime maneuvers, and communication drills. And the Australian Defence Department also, in a statement, sought to play down the role. Now, it's kind of interesting because Australia is almost all Chinese. They can kind of boycott things. But anyway, I am going to stop there. But I have a question for you. Do you feel China is bullying at a very bad time due to the pandemic? Or do you think China planned the virus first as a distraction to make its claim in the sea? Why or why not? Please leave your comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Our next article of the day comes from the Taiwanese Times. The South Taiwan City, which is the second biggest city in Taiwan, rolls out container sample collection stations for the coronavirus. I thought this was pretty unique, so let's get into it. Container removal become mobile stations sample collection in Taiwan. Taiwan is the second biggest city in Taiwan. Taipei News. The southern city of Tai'an in Taiwan has launched a mobile sample collection station for the coronavirus COVID-19 testing that is touted to be safer and more efficient. So this is what it looks like. It looks like, I guess the person's on the other side of it and he has the rubber gloves. So he himself never touches you with skin, I guess. But, okay, so, and they can put those on trucks and move them around in the parking lots or whatnot. The station, repurposed from a container, can be quickly assembled and moved around to places with the testing needs, comprising 4 individual units with separate areas for medic collecting samples as well as individuals having their samples taken. The station will help reduce transmission risk. The outdoor mobile station is also fitted with UV lighting, disinfection equipment for better sterilization. The first such device was installed at a campus of the Ministry of Health and Welfare in Taichung Hospital. Receiving a nasal swab, and that means your nose, test through the transparent Patreon, Taiwan Mayor became the first visitor on Thursday. The station has the capacity to perform 24 hours tests, with each taking about 10 minutes, including the disinfection. I wonder how accurate that is, because most people say the good ones are like 90 minutes to 2 hours for high accuracy rate. As the process involves almost no direct contact, hazmat suits are not required, thus helping cut down on the use of limited resources. This service will be expanded to more hospitals to relieve the burden of the medical system. Okay, so this is my question for you. Okay, so these are mobile and these are testing kits. So what do you think? Do you think this is a system like this is a great to stop the spread of germs and viruses? Will it work for testing? And what is your biggest fear when you go to the hospital? Why? You know, I myself never really had a fear, but like my dad, he would always fear needles and blood taking. Other people have a fear of anesthesia, where they put you under for sleeping so they can do surgery. So anyway, that was my question for you. Like, subscribe, and leave your comments below. I'd love to hear from you. On to our third article of the day. Convid-19 infected people in their 30s and 40s have sudden strokes. Now, this is kind of ongoing because yesterday I did an article about it, and a day or two before that I did one as well. I will leave a link below. But let's get into what this says, because this is giving more detail than the previous ones. Okay. In addition to damaging the lungs, the coronavirus infections can damage the protective layer of the blood vessels and damage all organs by entering the bloodstream. Yeah. So like the other article I read said that this virus can go through the blood-brain barrier, which is pretty much in the back of your neck. It's a barrier where bad germs and stuff can't really get in, have a hard time. So let's read about this. Doctors at the Shin Medical Center in New York warned that the infections can cause blood clots and sudden strokes. The majority of stroke patients are in their 30s and 40s. Recently, the number of people with this type of diagnostics has increased dramatically. Thomas Oakley, the neurosurgeon is somebody who operates on your brain, at a hospital, and his team received 5 patients with coronavirus infections and strokes last week. They were under the age of 50, some anesthetic, and some with mild symptoms. While New York may have received 5 last week, South Korea was reporting a lot of people like this. That number of strokes among young patients who came to our hospital in the last 2 weeks has increased 7-fold. Most of these patients had no underlying disease. Some had no symptoms of the coronavirus, and some were isolated at home with mild illness. Therefore, carefully monitoring for signs of stroke such as sudden numbness of the face, loss of comprehension, changes in speech, sudden severe headaches, numbness in one side. Numbness means you cannot feel something on one side of your body, dizziness, and if any symptoms occur, call an ambulance. 911, 119, or whatever the emergency number is in your area. So besides reading this, do you recall what the symptoms for a stroke are? Moving on. My question for you about this article: what do you think about the virus's effect on the young people? Why is it different than the old? The old, it says it affects their lungs, or it attacks them with their current disease plus the virus itself. And then what is the procedure for you when you call for medical help for a person on the phone? Like this said, 911, and then what information would you give? In my case, I'll give my name, my location, and the state of the emergency, and I would hope to hear who will help me. Like, hi, my name is Santa Claus. I live in New York. I broke my leg. I need an ambulance. So how about you? Please answer the questions I asked below. Like, comment, and subscribe. Okay. This next article comes from Russia, and I found it interesting because in America, abortion clinics are an essential service, but in Moscow, they say not essential, so they pretty much close them down. So let's get their reasoning. More than 100,000 pregnant women will be unable to undergo medical abortions in Moscow because of restrictions during the virus outbreak, the Women's Rights Organization Center said. Only 3 out of the capital's 44 clinics have said they will continue to provide abortions through the National Compulsory Medical Insurance Program. The group said on its website Monday. The other 41 clinics told that the procedure is unavailable unless you're brought in through an ambulance. Between 100 and 150,000 women are at risk of unwanted pregnancies or botched abortions during lockdown measures imposed to slow the spread of the virus in Moscow. Its head Anna Riva told the independent newspaper. The health department in Moscow's mayor office denied any of the 3 clinics providing abortions. That news website reported. It said that the only one facility maternity ward reported had a virus infected patients. Russia's legalized abortion in 1955 and has the second highest abortion rate in the world after China. Wow. So Moscow, which has a population of 12.5 million, currently accounts for more than half of Russia's 62,000 coronavirus cases. Okay. So this is my questions for you. First, have you tried to give yourself an abortion? Because it's said here that statistics around the world confirm that when a legal abortion is impossible, the morality increases among women who do it the wrong way, as well as among children. So, do women really try to give themselves abortions? I don't know, because we didn't even have abortion, I guess, about 1960s and 70s, so what did they do before then? Furthermore, what are your thoughts about abortions? Is it a required service? Yes or no? Remember, Russia says no, America says yes. How about your country? And then what about the person's responsibility? I mean, if they're intimate with somebody and they choose to or not to choose birth control, should they be responsible for their actions? Or should they step up with their purpose in life? Those are questions I have for you. Please leave your comments below. I know it's a pretty controversial topic. I would love to hear. Like, comment, or subscribe. When it comes to international newspaper for today, this was one of the most interesting articles I read, and I wanted to share with you. Stop this retro nonsense about lockdown being a return to domestic bliss for women. All right. So, as you know, many women are home and they're homeschooling or taking care of their kid or baby, family needs, and it's a lot of work. It's very stressful, very hard. But what do they say? Hard times make strong women, weak times make weak men. So let's read this article, and I got a lot to talk about. Yesterday, I cleaned the toilet. I made myself an exquisite toast lunch and wrote this article. Sure, I don't have any kids, but I do have a demanding cat. Believe you me, on top of my career, housekeeping, and culinary excellence, his needs were met. What's it like to be a woman who has it all? I hear you ask. Spectacular, opening, and humbling. In my reality, my life changed relatively little since the lockdown, and that specifically is why I'm lucky. I've worked from home for several years, and yes, of course, Looking after an animal that spends 90% of his entire time either sleeping or outside is about as fair a comparison to having a child or multiple children as the Western world in the time of the convoy. It is the handmaiden's tale, which is not to say that women's lives and careers aren't being stunted, but the pandemic in which we find ourselves, while the actual virus is proving to be more deadly to men. So at least she gives the notion that men are getting the virus worse than women. It's women who are more likely to be made redundant. This girl told the Independent in March. Women, particularly those who are BAME, are disabled, who are more at risk of poverty. Women who are more likely to be self-employed. Women are most who are at increased risk for domestic violence. The strikes against us in this crisis is going on, which is what makes it all the more galling to see a resurgence in the deeply retro "can women have it all" narrative. Alright, so she's going over in this how the newspapers are saying, yes, women live in poverty, women might suffer being hit, women might have kids problems, but that's what she's saying the news says. This is what she's going to say. One Daily Mail article, which portrays the newly WFH or four-load woman proudly weighing feather dusters and cakes, frames the lockdown as a sort of spiritual as well as literal homecoming for career women. Thanks to a deadly virus, we're back where we belong, potting around in aprons and absolutely loving it. See, women can't have it all, this says, and they're happiest back home in the natural habitat, like those goats that took over the town in Wales, because everybody knows a goat is happiest when it's walking distance of a superdrug. All right. So obviously, there's absolutely no shame in doing or even enjoying most or all of the housework. Stay-at-home mothers are some of the least appreciated. Okay, I agree with that. Hardest working people on earth. And anybody who disputes this is clearly never met a child. But to wrap up this en masse homecoming of women, those who don't count towards a legion of key workers, of course, in the 1950s, housewives Felix nostalgia, unhelpful at best. I nearly did a spat take to the reader this line from the recent Pipers of the time on being a woman who has it all, when I realized the lockdown meant that the cleaner couldn't come. It was clear I was living through a dystopian nightmare, ironic or not. Some of the tone deafness of the more coronavirus media coverage of women and coronavirus is a lot to handle. And which one is it then? Has Margaret Atwood's darkest work been brought to life? Or we living in domestic dream? Could it possibly be that neither is the case? It would be nice for the same narrative to be applied to men. Multiple articles about men swapping their suits for aprons, and Margaret's world, of course, be equally considering, but at least they would be in charge, being changed from the supposedly present focus on during the global pandemic constitutes the perfect woman. Yeah, so see, this is saying, yeah, women are home, women are doing this, notice me, protect us from the DV, protect us, but you don't hear much about the men, and that's why I like this article she first called out. So what is your boyfriend, what is your husband, or what are you, the man, what are you doing during this lockdown? I really want to know how it's affecting you and what you're doing differently. The fact is that as before the convoy days, women, working or otherwise, do more housework. With the schools and nurseries, that's been exacerbated to the point of the crisis of unpaid labor. That this isn't cute, it's not pleasingly mid-century. It's for countless overworked women a living nightmare. And that's not to mention those who are self-isolating with abusive partners or single mothers who were already struggling before the entire world imploded. Yeah, but as we're going to read soon, most of the world gets plenty of free money, at least in America, for the welfare. All right. If we're going to look at the nature is healing, the types of positives to come have out of the Convoy 19, it is hard to argue that more work and less money is one of them. No matter how anesthetic pleasing this may be to think, kind of people who feel nostalgic for balanced magica and corporal punishment in schools. There's a lot to talk about. Achieving your full potential during a lockdown, which is all the more unfair when other people get to define exactly what full potential is. When you're trying to prioritize staying sane and alive, it would only be polite to question, can women have it all to go on the tube and lick? All right. Now, this is what I wanted to talk about with you, okay? Is that how it mentioned about men and how society gives women gender roles and men gender roles. So what do you think of the media? The media trying to say women should be the teachers, or women should go outside and be independent. Women should or shouldn't be the housewives. Me, I grew up in the 80s and I really hated the gender roles. For example, I watched a show called Married with Children. On this show, they always, in many other shows, Everybody Loves Raymond, they always would make fun of the husband or the boyfriend. You're acting stupid, you did stupid. The only thing the guy was good for was give me money, give me money, give me money. And they made him look stupid over and over and over again. And many times they would make a joke about, oh, you're going to get lucky tonight, honey. And then, oops, sorry, I'm no longer in the mood. That was the 80s and 90s. And then even better shows like Friends, again, Ross, Joey, they kept always making fun of the three head actors. The only really male role models I can recall were Seventh Heaven. The pastor was okay in that show. He always would give like father knows best advice. The pastor was his role, so he had to. And Star Trek Deep Space Nine had Cisco as a captain. He had a son, and he did good parenting skills. You know, and another gender roles. If you go back to, I don't know, Rambo 2, you go to any movie, the man meets the girl hates the woman. The man saves the girl, the woman falls in love with the man saves the day. But so that was always happened. Then you get something like Captain Marvel. Oh, I can do everything. I can just one punch you. So that's kind of my question. So do family members need 100% independence, or should part of being a family mean sacrificing independence for a team of group work? Because these women are saying we do everything. Well, of course they do everything. The man's working to pay the mortgage, so you have a place to raise the kids or a nice house to stay in. So anyway, leave your comments below. Is independence or teamwork? What's better for you? And what about the gender roles? Like, comment, or surprise. This is my last international article of the day. Americans are too scared to go to work. Risk losing unemployment aid, experts say. The U.S. Workers who refused to return to their jobs because they were worried about catching the virus should not count on getting unemployment benefits. Statistics state the official labor law experts say. Okay, so let me give you an example here. When you work in America, you pay a little money and you get this thing called unemployment insurance, and usually it lasts 3 to 6 months. In 2008-9, when they had a financial crisis, they gave people 52 weeks of unemployment, so they can kind of stay home and do nothing. Furthermore, it made them pretty complacent. And normally, before 2008, like the 90s and early 2000s, you had to get a caseworker, and you had to show you applied for 10, 20 jobs, or you were in school or something. Then they would hand you that money. But by 2008, they did away with kind of those caseworkers. They said, nah, we don't have time for that. It's a waste of money. So nobody was motivating these people to continue working or find work. They were living kind of like on free money. So when Congress passed this thing for America, they basically told most employees, you can stay home and we'll pay you your wages for 4 months for free. And we'll give you also a $1,200 bonus stimulus check plus a $600 check extra. So they're making a lot of money just to do nothing. I myself am not in America, even though I am American. They won't give me a dime. And I've been out of work for quite a while, but I'm back. I am working again. So I don't know. I like being productive though. So what about you? Do you think people should get long-term financial aid, or should they have to take steps to receive the aid? Let's keep reading this. Workers in a handful of U.S. states will face this situation this week as the state officials hope to revive economic paralysis by shutdowns related to the epidemic. Under an order by Georgia's Republican Governor Brian Kemp, the barbershop, gym, nails, salons, and tattoo parlors will be able to open on Friday, and the restaurants will open for sit-down services on Monday. Now, if you recall, yesterday, I put up a video about a barber here in Vietnam, many of them actually. They're driving around on their motorcycles to people's houses because, again, there's no safety net in Vietnam. It's you work or you die. So, all right. So, South Carolina allows retailers to open Monday, and Texas and Tennessee have said they will ease some restrictions in the coming weeks. That's kind of scary. None of these states currently meets the White House's guidelines for reopening, only following 2 weeks of deadlines in the numbers of positive tests for the disease. Public health officials say reopening local businesses without adequate testing will expose more people to the pandemic that has infected more than 800,000 Americans and killed more than 40,000 since February. About 2.2 million or 22 million have filed for unemployment benefits in the past 4 weeks, with millions more. Yeah, it's like 27 million now. So state unemployment laws generally do not allow workers to collect jobless benefits if they refuse work available to them, said Thomas Smith, an assistant finance professor at the Economist University. That could force workers of Georgia back to their jobs at the time when it's not clear whether the risk of infection is abated, he said. You're asking people to put their life on the line, he said. These people aren't. Army Rangers, those people signed up for combat. Barbers did not. Again, barbers can always just go to people's houses. And most lockdown laws say you can do within 2, 3, or 4 people, so that's not breaking the law. Going back to work is a worrisome prospect for the Georgian liberal facilities. Yi, 36, who said she fears exposures to the virus because she is expecting her first child in July. I feel embarrassed and afraid to be in Georgia right now, Yi said. Public libraries in her country remain closed for now. This is America. Everybody is a victim. If you're a victim, because there's always money somewhere for you. Play the victim card. Georgia's Labor Department says it's processed more than 860,000 unemployment claims since March, with President Trump declared a national emergency because of the virus. That is equal to 17% of the total state workforce. Officials say they are now paying twice out as many claims in a single week as they did for all 2019 and have distributed more than 500 million benefits. Well, they kind of want universal basic income, right? Some critics say the state's early reopening an attempt to push people out of their safety net systems that is straining states' finances. I think that is one of the big drivers of this decision by CAP is to get people off unemployment rolls and having the private sector keeping these people afloat, said Georgia lawyer. Okay, CAP office declined to comment on that, but pointed out a rule that allows workers to collect full unemployment benefits even if they earn up to $300 per week. That could help those who are not called back to work full time, the official said. Georgia's workers worried about their health, they should try to work out a deal. If an employee is concerned about returning to work due to the exposure, we are encouraging employees to communicate with their employers on plans to stay safe and return to work. Some Georgian businesses are opting not to open at all at this point due to employee safety concerns. All right, moving on. It says, I have a daughter, and I don't want to get her sick. So I'm going to stop it there. But what do you think? Do you think it's okay to stay home and just collect money, or would you feel bored? Like, many people were already going crazy in their lockdown, but hey, this time they can be home. Even if they are bored, they're getting free money. So, in this case, are the Americans, are they scared, or are they just lazy? I already told you about yesterday's barber, how he's going to people's houses to make money, and he's actually making more money now because he's cheap versus if he's working in a shop. Is this a move to get unemployment? Is this a move for people to become comfortable receiving basic income, so they will get used to government money, government help, instead of being responsible for themselves? What do you think? And what would you do to be safe on your job if returning? What if your company closed? What will you do to find a new job? Those are my questions for you. Please like, comment, or subscribe below. Hi. The small clip you saw was brought to you by Loyal World News. If you like what you saw, you should subscribe and look up my daily Loyal World News report for its full version. If you don't want to watch it on YouTube, prefer to be on the road, I also have a podcast in every full-length video I put up.